Well, I was trying to think about how to intro this video, and I figure the fact that you clicked on it and we're at the beginning implies that there's an introduction, so let's get on with it. Well, what's up? Hope you guys are doing well. This little front camera here is off a little bit. This was my kind of second attempt at mounting it. The first attempt didn't work how I wanted it to. This is just kind of stuck on there. The angle's off a little. I should have thought that through, like I should think most things through before I do them, but I don't. So anyway, I have been wanting to make this video that was basically just talking about some of the differences that I personally noticed with the GSX, the Suzuki GSX-S750, and my recently acquired Yamaha FZ-07, or MT-07 as it's also known. Honestly, I'm comparing the older versions of both bikes because I owned a 2015 Suzuki. This is the 2017 Yamaha. 2018 versions of both of those bikes have minor differences, but I think, and from what I know about my reading and everything like that, that at the core of it, the bikes are very much the same. Minor tweaks to both, but nothing that's really gonna change or have much of an impact on the points that I'm gonna make today. This is not like a full in-depth comparison, and in reality, these bikes aren't even really designed to be compared anyway, because the GSX-S750 is really on par with the FZ-09. Some of you might be wondering, like, well, if you had the bike that was comparable to the FZ-09, why do you take a step back? Why did you go back to the FZ? Like, that just doesn't even make any sense, right? It's like, well, maybe not. I don't know. Kind of depends on how you look at things, you know? Everything's a matter of perspective, right? I think the most shocking difference to me, and these are in no particular order, what's up, is the weight. The weight difference is huge between these bikes. So the GSX, and I'm going to round the numbers just slightly, okay? So it's not like to a T here, but, or to a tenth of a pound. A T, see? A T works. Yeah, shut up. 470 pounds for the Suzuki, and basically 400 for the Yamaha. That's a big difference. It's a really big difference. You feel it the second that you sit on the bike and pull it up off the kickstand, and you feel it everywhere else along the way, you know, just everywhere. It's just crazy to me how it makes such a difference in cornering and low speed and high speed, and, you know, I'll come back to the high speed thing in a minute, but it's just crazy how big of a difference it makes. And, you know, for what I do and how I ride, having the lighter weight bike is just a much more enjoyable experience because of how and where and when I ride. So I ride in town a lot. I don't go on any real big trips. I've never ridden for more than a couple hours at a time, which you can stomach most any bike for a couple hours, you know, in my opinion. I mean, I rode my Ninja 250 for, you know, probably a good few hundred miles in a day. It was fine. I mean, it just sits there at the top of the rev range in 6th gear on the highway, but it's not a big deal at all, you know? Given how I ride, basically just commuting effectively is, you know, what I'm doing. This bike just kind of made a little bit more sense, and this was also the bike that I had kind of always wanted, but I got such a good deal on the Suzuki at the time, and the FZs were, you know, still selling like hotcakes, and there wasn't really any, you know, many used ones on the market yet. There wasn't, you know, discounts on new ones, again, because they're selling so quickly. So I just picked that up, you know, but this was the bike I always wanted. It really is. And after coming from such a heavy bike, which it's not heavy in the grand scheme of things, it's just kind of heavy for what it is, especially considering it weighs even 50 pounds more than the FZ-09 does, which is also crazy. And to be fair, both of those bikes have less cylinders, right? So it's not really a true comparison. But everywhere that I am, the bike just feels like a toy, and I actually have to be careful about that, you know, because you could still get into trouble on this thing, and this thing is pretty prone to picking the front wheel up in 1st gear. So weight's a big thing. The next one that's kind of a big thing, but not as big of a deal as I thought that it would be, is the horsepower. So again, I'm just going to use some round numbers here. These are not, you know, specific wheel horsepower numbers on both bikes, but the GSX-S750 makes about 100 horsepower to the wheels, and you're going to be at about mid-60s for horsepower, especially if you do a couple of easy mods on the FZ-07. So you're talking, you know, a good 30 at least, if not close to 40 horsepower difference between these bikes. Now, the weight comes back into play very quickly. The other thing that comes into play very quickly is how and when the power is delivered. And what's interesting is that both of these bikes, or both of the bikes, like I'm riding two of them right now, good grief. Both of the bikes make almost the same amount of torque. The FZ makes it much lower. So it's got this real punch below 6,000 RPM, and the Suzuki was just kind of meh down at that rev range. There was not really anything going on, and you really had to get above 6, if not even 8,000 RPM for like the lights to really come on, and you know, you felt it start to really pull, like a lot of 4-cylinders do anyway. You know, the GSX-S750 is based on the GSX-750, and it's a high revving, you know, higher end, you know, power machine, or, you know, makes power higher in the rev range, and that just is what it is. It's no problem. It's just what the bike's designed to do, right? The power difference somewhat negated by the weight. The GSX is still a faster bike all the way around, you know, quarter mile, 0 to 60, all that kind of stuff. It just is, you know, but when it makes the power and how it makes you feel as it makes the power is really important. You know, how you feel when you ride is probably the most important thing. If it makes you feel good, then that's awesome. You know, that's what it's about. I think that's why a lot of people ride Harleys, just because of that, you know, stigma that they have and how it makes you feel. I've only ridden a Harley once or twice now, but I kind of liked it. I was like, this is kind of fun. It's not that comfortable, but it makes me feel good. But for bombing around town, do you want something that revs real high? Do you want something, you know, that doesn't have as much torque down low, that you really have to kind of wring it out to feel like you're enjoying the bike? You know, you're still going quick. It's not slow, but just that feeling, you know, versus this, where I find myself romping through gears and jerking my eyes down to the speedometer only to find that I'm not really going that fast. I'm not really blowing past the speed limit or doing anything, you know, that would like get me arrested or something, you know? Like this will go, hey, you're in trouble speeds, but not arrest me speeds. Well, it will, you know, maybe I'm not explaining that right. It'll definitely get you in trouble, this bike, any bike, but you know, that feeling that you get of just banging through the gears, and you are actually moving along pretty good. It's not like on my Ninja 250 where you just ringing every gear out and then you look down and you're basically at the speed limit, you know. I mean, this will get there pretty quick, but it just makes me feel good when I do it, you know, that thumping 2-cylinder, and I can't wait to get an exhaust on this thing, which that's coming hopefully in the next few weeks or something like that. I'll be able to get that. But the feeling, how it makes you feel in your soul and in between your legs. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So those are the two big things for me that I noticed, of course. But some of the other things I'm going to list off, maybe, you know, it's a matter of opinion or whatever, and really everything is. Maybe you disagree with all these things, and, you know, whatever, that's fine. That is just fine. The brakes. So I don't think the brakes on either bike are something to write home about, but I like the feeling on this bike better than I like the GSX. Do they stop the same? I don't know. I don't ride super hard. I don't have to do a lot of emergency braking, thankfully. And I say that and a car's gonna pull out in front of me. Please don't. Alright, cool. So yeah, I don't have to do that much emergency braking, you know, so just how that initial bite is, and you know, stuff like that. The brakes are probably very similar, but this weighs a lot less, so I feel like they make a little bit more of a difference on this bike. But I'm not an expert. I can't go into detail about that kind of stuff and explain to you the differences between the braking force and blah blah blah. I feel like the brakes are better on the Yamaha. I think I read some of the articles saying that the people people felt like that the Suzuki didn't have sufficient brakes, and that it didn't have a good initial feeling when you grab the lever. I don't know what they're like on a track when you put them through a bunch of use. I doubt that either bike is sufficient for, you know, real track use, and that you'd want to at least upgrade pads, get stainless lines on both of them and stuff like that, and you'd have a much better braking experience. But stock for stock, I like the Yamaha better, but that's just a personal feeling. Who knows if it actually is. I guess I'll move over to the other side of the bars and talk about the clutch and shifting real quick. I really liked the shifter, or the feeling of the shifter on the GSX. Clutches feel about the same. I mean, this is a stock lever. It's probably a bit easier to pull than the shorty lever that I had on the Suzuki, but the shifter definitely felt better and tighter on the Suzuki. I'm just, you know, and I'm still getting used to this bike. I've had it for, about 600 miles now. I've owned the bike in about 2 months, I think. And yeah, I'm feeling like it's lacking a little as far as the shifter. But I mean, is it the oil that I'm running? Is my chain a little out of adjustment? Is it just is what it is because this is kind of a budget bike? Hard to tell. Now, I think I was hinting towards this at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to kind of circle back to it because it kind of encompasses my first 2 points about power and weight, is how this thing feels at higher speeds. I have only had one occasion to get it up to a very generous highway speed, and the front end started getting super light and nearly wobbly on me. Now, everything is balanced out on this bike, everything's good to go, tires, everything like that, so I don't think that it has anything to do with that. I just think that it's how the front end of the bike is, how light the bike is, and it's just not really being designed for that kind and that type of riding. It's not a super sport. It's just not made for that. The GSX would get up there pretty good. While you were accelerating, the front end would get a little light, but you know, you could lean over the tank a little bit and settle into some pretty hefty speeds, and you know, with confidence, I would say. But this, not so much. But honestly, after kind of experiencing that, I was like, all right, well, that's what that's all about, and I don't really care to do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's not even what I want to do with my riding. I'm kind of comfortable just doing this bomb around town thing. Maybe I'll learn how to wheelie a little bit one day, and you know, whatever. But I'm not into that, or I'm trying not to be into that. I was finding myself very frequently going too quick on the Suzuki, and I think that, well, first of all, a lot of that is just a lack of self-control, and that's completely on me. I mean, you could be in the fastest car on the planet and drive the same speeds as everybody else and drive like a normal person. I don't have very good self-control sometimes, and I was seeing that as being a bad thing. Like, having the ability to be able to do that was not good for me to have, you know, at my disposal. So that was, you know, a conscious decision for me to not have that bike anymore, not have a bike that was quite that powerful, at least for now, or for a time, or for forever. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I understand that the power is right here. Literally, this, you know, is what makes the difference and stuff, and you know, up here. But not being able to go as fast as I could before has helped me kind of calm down a little bit in a way, and you know, I'm hoping that that'll just help me with my overall mindset as I'm riding around. And you know, you can have some good clean fun, hoon around a little bit, but do you need to do it at crazy speeds? You know, I made some passes on cars that I shouldn't have because I kind of knew that I could, and you know, I kind of was getting myself into hairy situations, and it's like, I don't need to be doing that to myself. I want to be able to ride for a long time. You know, I don't want to be doing something like that and have a stupid and completely avoidable accident because I was being selfish and cocky and, you know, whatever. So to be limited in the power and understanding that I'm limited it's helped me, you know, but again, that's going to be different for everybody. Like usual, guys, I didn't plan this video out at all. I mean, I've thought about it. I kind of knew I wanted to do this, but I didn't like write a little script for myself. I just literally got on the bike and just started talking like I often do. So sorry if these things are a little out of order. Sorry if I'm going to miss some points or whatever. I'm saying that to say that my final point for this video is going to be, or final thought, I guess, is are either of these bikes beginner bikes? Like, would I recommend them for a first-time rider or a first-time street rider? My opinion is that the Yamaha FZ-07 or MT-07 as it's now called could certainly be a beginner bike for somebody that is fairly responsible and is kind of taking to street riding, you know, pretty quickly. I still get a little nervous myself even after riding for a few years about first gear on this bike and how easy the front wheel comes up, might even come up in second, you know, and it's just something to be mindful of. It's not like at 12 o'clock every time you leave the line, but, you know, just having the ability to do that so easily, that may or may not be good for you personally to have with your first bike. The GSX-S, now, I think it's just too heavy. Not having a lot of power down low is actually kind of a good thing because it, like, you know, you can kind of putz around town with it. And I did. I put 10,000 miles on that bike. A lot of it, you know, just through town, casual weekend rides like what I'm doing right now and, you know, stuff like that. And it was fine. And I was coming from a Ninja 250 and I was only on the Ninja for less than a year, like maybe 8 or 9 months. And, you know, I just don't think that it's a good beginner bike. I wouldn't recommend it as one. I could say, sure, move to that after you have a Ninja 250, Ninja 300, a 500, you know, something like that. Some, you know, lower class bike, and you just want that next step up in power, but you don't want to, like, go crazy like, you know, MT10, you know, status or whatever, right? So yeah, I guess that's it for my thoughts for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and maybe I'll make some other comparison stuff later, or pros cons about the MT as I see it, but so much of that stuff has been done. I kind of knew that the FZ versus GSX-S hasn't really been compared as much, but maybe some of you will search this video, find it. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Let's practice a little baby wheelie real quick. Those are fun. Those are fun.